Now, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial continues in the High Court in Pretoria. His friend, Mthokozisi Thwala, is back on the stand. Now, just yesterday, just for context, he detailed the events leading up to that fatal shooting, the Bafana Bafana captain, Senzo Meyiwa, but also revealing another person who was in the house the night that he was gunned down. eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu following proceedings for us. He joins us live now to, of course, just remind us of what happened yesterday, or also what to expect as we continue to hear those testimonies out in court. Good morning to you, Manqoba. I mean, quite a revelation that Mthokozisi had to say, not only about what happened in that house, Kelukumalo's mother's home out in Vosloorus, when Senzo Meyiwa was shot, but also the events that led after that, the announcement of his passing to, of course, themselves as Senzo's friends, and also what he calls harassment from the police as well.
Certainly, Tumelo, and I think yesterday we began with what he called torture from police, and this is after he had, been part of the investigation looking into Senzo Meyiwa's death. Of course, he was one of the people that was inside the house when that shooting occurred. So there were several investigations that had been held where Mthokozisi Thwala says at one point in 2019 he was assaulted, he was tortured by police. He says that he had opened a case at Umlazi on this particular assault that had happened in January 2019, but he says that he only received a visit once from IPID, and up until now, 4 years later, nothing has happened of that case. But yesterday, Tumelo, we saw proceedings being delayed slightly, and this was due to an application that was brought by the state where it had concluded its evidence on Mthokozisi Thwala, and it had then wanted to request the court to lead evidence that will ensure that they fix the inaccuracies in his testimony between the statement that he made with police back in 2014 and the testimony that he gave in court. And there was a bit of an, a delay as far as that is concerned, given that the judge then asked that this matter stand down so that they can familiarize themselves with the section that dealt with this particular issue. This was Section 190 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which the state had been relying on to support the credibility of its witness, but the defense objecting to it, saying that it was tantamount to the state, cross-examining its own witness. And we saw, of course, after that short delay, Judge Chifiwa Maumela coming back and saying that that particular argument was not sustainable. He therefore ruled that the state could proceed as far as fixing some of those inaccuracies and inconsistencies in his testimony. So some of those that the state mentioned is the issue of, Longa Thwala's involvement in the scuffle, because you recall, Tumelo, that during cross-examination, or during the evidence in chief, rather, of Mthokozisi Thwala, we heard from him that at the time when the intruders had come into the house, Longa Thwala had, ran away from the house. In fact, he testified that he had pushed one of the intruders and he managed to escape out of the door, and he had ran away from the house. But in his initial statement that he made back in 2014, he alluded to the fact that, in fact, Longa Thwala had let go of a firearm from the hands of one of the intruders, which seems to suggest that Longa Thwala perhaps was involved in that particular scuffle that had happened at the house. But we got to hear him then clearing that up, saying that, in fact, Longa Thwala had ran away from the house, and that, the statement as it was is not correct in that sense. But also when it came to some of the suspects that had come into the house, there was also issues as far as the suspects were wearing at that particular time. According to his statement, suspect one who was carrying a gun was, the one that was wearing a hoodie. He had dreadlocks, and he could see the dreadlocks dreadlocks protruding from the hoodie, but his testimony in court revealed that this was actually a suspect that was wearing a hat, not a hoodie, and this was a suspect with dreadlocks and was carrying a firearm. So he also clarified that, saying that it was actually suspect number 2, the one who had a sharp object that was wearing a hoodie at the time, and the police seem to have got it wrong when they had made that particular statement. But of course, we also got to cross-examination, Tumelo, where we heard from the lawyers representing accused 1 and 2, questioning Mthokozisi Thwala about the events that happened on the 26th of October. I think we just got 2 cross-examination where the first question was, how does he sleep at night? And of course, his answer was, I close my eyes. So you can see, Tumelo, that is still going to be quite a long cross-examination, but of course we're expecting the defense to continue poking holes in his testimony as they continue with cross-examination this morning.
All right, we'll continue, of course, to follow through with those developments with you, Manqoba Mchunu, out at court. The Senzo Meyiwa murder trial expected to still continue today with cross-examination, and we'll have our reporter standing by for us for the very latest.